I guess before you started recording, we were just talking about how you do all of your stuff, all of the things, and still have a regular job, which is so mind blowing to me. And I respect that so much because, you got to take care of your family, you got to take care of yourself. And you also, it's like so valuable to have this creative passion on the side. So how do you balance it? And I know how you probably get
I,
this question all the
I
time.
live
How do you
I
balance
live
it?
I live off structure. I got 40 hours a week already accounted
Yeah.
for, so I have to show up super intentional with my day. And we're not like even getting into the show, but let's use this, okay? We'll use this and I'll still give you a proper
Yeah.
intro. But I wake up early as shit before my day job at
What
seven
time do you
o'clock.
wake up?
During this whole launch right now and preparing, I got a live podcast at Creative
Hmm.
Works next week, my first live podcast. This
It's
is
super
coming out
exciting.
after that. So it went
Yeah.
well. Visualize, and attract the greatness that happens. So it went well.
That's awesome.
But so I've during this season, as I prep the court or the program and everything, I've been getting up at like 4 a.m. every day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
Good for you. That's hard
uh
work. You're like
it's
the epitome of what makes an amazing freelance creative. Seriously.
thing I wanna that's the only I can it's the only thing I can speak to. I only know how to grind outside a day job and build something for myself because that's all I know. And then I
Yeah,
work
but it
on my
definitely it's definitely part of who you are because I can't even tell you like we have to hire people. So my husband and I we run a bouldering gym and we own it. So that's like outside of what I do. Like he owns it. But we have to like hire people and do interviews and things like that. And I've hired interns on and off over the years. And something that I found is that so many people just don't want to put the work in and then feel kind of entitled to things, like entitled
yes.
to success or whatever, and then they just don't want to put the work in.
The Perspective Podcast is fuel for your mind and creative grind. Each week, my guests and I provide the skills for thinking bigger, overcoming adversity, and making an impact with your work.
But this isn't about me. This is about you. All right, people already know about me here. So for those of you who don't know, give us a brief Wikipedia page summary about yourself because, hey, folks, today I'm chopping it up with Molly Jacques, the queen of creative education, specializing in freelance, passive income, and marketing. So welcome to the Perspective Podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here, Scotty. I just feel so honored to be here. It's so cool. I don't get to do podcasts that often, so I get
Oh,
really excited to do it. So I guess for anyone who is listening, yes, I do those things that you said. My main job has been I've been a full-time freelancer. I do hand lettering. That's like my specialty. I've been doing that full time for about 10 years now. And I wouldn't even say I work primarily on anything. My freelance work is kind of all over the place. I do a lot of editorial things. I do a lot of branding. I work on campaigns. I work with ad agencies. I do packaging, blah, 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 all those things, all the things you would think of for a lettering artist. I do them. And I've been doing it for 10 years. And then recently, maybe like the past few years, I have been focusing a lot of my efforts into like kind of similar to like what you're doing, like just being a cheerleader for other creatives who don't necessarily have the resources or know how to say, oh, this is how you get clients, this is how you do this is how you do that. And just like we all kind of need that little motivation, like the little cheerleader boost, especially for people like myself. I work from home, I'm an introvert, and
you're an
that like
introvert.
resonates with me.
Really?
Oh
Wow,
yeah.
I would
Oh yeah.
not have guessed that because you're so like I'm a social butterfly, and I feel like you're such a bubbly personality, and you're so comfortable on video. And your sponsor, I feel like I already know you because of all your sponsored ads that come up. I'm like, hey, I feel
Oh,
like
it's
she's
so
already
funny.
my
That's what
friend.
you said. That's what you said on Instagram. And when you messaged it to me, I was laughing because I'm like, well, that's good to know that it's
That's
being
very,
targeted correctly
it's
and like
good.
people are seeing it.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't feel salesy. It's like, hey, I know your biggest struggles, and I want to provide you value.
That's
That's
what
how
I
it's
try.
supposed to
That's
be.
what I try to do.
And I want to dive into that too because copywriting and email marketing are quickly becoming like what my business is built on.
Right.
The honey is the Instagram post, the nice little polished drawing, or now the swipe gallery. That's the honey. But then it's like when you the psychological thing of they land on your Instagram bio, you got 5-10 seconds to capture their interest Then they look at the 6 to 9 photos. Is this for me? Does it match what this is? And then you go ahead and you capture them. So when did you know you wanted to fill that role as an educator? Was it because people were asking you all these questions outside of freelance? You're like, okay, there's a gap here. How can I provide value?
Well, I feel like I fell into the role of educator before I started doing all of the stuff on the internet. So back in, I feel like my first workshop that I taught was like, oh my gosh, what year was it? It might have been like 2013, 2014. I started teaching calligraphy workshops. And that's
Yeah.
back when I was doing like a lot of wedding calligraphy, which I stopped doing that a long time ago. But people just wanted to learn calligraphy. And that was around the same time that I taught my first class on Skillshare. I digress. I feel like I fell into the educator role when I started teaching live workshops, and I realized that I was actually good at it because not everybody is good at teaching. Like there are tons of people who are highly skilled artists or creatives or just skilled at whatever they do, right? So I felt like I was good at teaching because people were leaving my classes feeling happy and feeling empowered to do whatever at the time calligraphy. Um, and and so I realized that talent, and then I kind of fell into it and started teaching a ton, and I got all of this, experience under my belt. And then I was invited to teach as adjunct faculty at College for Creative Studies in Detroit, which is where I went to school. So that was exciting. And so I taught at college level, and like that was really exciting. And then I slowly got into doing more stuff on the internet because I liked it, right? Like, I bet you probably like to follow your passions, right?
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
much the story of my life.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like having little things like opportunities fall in your lap and then seeing where it takes you. And if it takes you to a good place, awesome. If you figure out you're bad at it, whatever,
Awesome.
like
That's progress is
awesome.
progress.
Yeah,
Progress
yeah.
is
And so I
progress.
figured out I like teaching, and even being an introvert, I feel like I definitely, my social skills are maybe not necessarily where I would like them to be at like a large scale, and like small scales where I love to connect intimately with like, with you. It's like so nice to have this intimate connection. But with lots of people, like in a classroom setting, it could be really overwhelming and really exhausting for me. So teaching at college was extremely exhausting. And I realized that quickly because it was like every week I was showing up to this classroom and I loved it. My students were awesome. It's just exhausting for an introvert. So I switched more into doing like the internet stuff. It's nice because
Do it
you
from
don't
your
really have
comforts of your
that.
home studio. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So did freelance then piggyback off of the teaching because you set yourself up in the scene as like an authority from it and then you started attracting work?
Sort of.
Or was
Sort
it
of.
all simultaneously?
It was kind of simultaneously. So when I always like whenever I describe my career, it's like a combination, and I'm sure like you can agree. Anyone who does freelance or is this in a similar situation can probably agree with this. So like my career, my success in my career is like a combination of like really, really hard work. I think that's like the main key component to, finding success in freelancing is working really hard. But also right place, right time, like luck, having a ton of luck, and then being in a place of privilege. So I had the privilege to like, I was born into a family where like my parents promoted the arts and they like told me I was good at it. And then I was able to go to college and I was able to do all these things that had nothing to do with my talent or had anything to do with even my hard work. And so like this combination was like a really good combination for
Mm,
me. And so with my freelance work, when I first started, oh my goodness, I'm the worst at rambling. Sorry.
you're good.
So when I
You're
first
good.
started doing freelance work, I was out in Los Angeles in 2010. And I started working with a stationery company called Sugar Paper, and they're just like this high-end stationery company. They're amazing, and they started hiring me for freelance work, and I brought them my portfolio. So I went to school for illustration, but I was like super into gig poster art and like punk rock posters and stuff back in the day. And so of course I had tons of like hand-drawn type and hand lettering. And so when I presented to them, which is hilarious because it's Sugar Paper is so not that vibe, and in retrospect it's like it's just so funny that I was even presenting that to them. Anyways, they saw it and they said, oh my goodness, we want you to do hand lettering. And this was the same time that like Dana Tanamachi and like Jessica Hish
The
just
first
started.
wave, is this like
First wave.
2013
No,
kind
this was
of
like
2012?
this was like 2010,
Okay,
2011.
yeah, actually that's first wave, but I'd be second wave because I was like 2013 jumping in on that second
Which
boom of it on Instagram.
that's when I really started jumping into like more of the commercial side, was that end.
Okay.
But yes, totally. And so this was like when like Dana Tanamachi, of course, was a huge influence to me, and then Jessica Hish, like, and there were a couple other people. Like I loved Betsy Dunlap. She was doing a lot of like modern calligraphy at the time. I'm going on such a long tangent right now. Anyways, so Sugar Paper, they hired me to start doing this stuff. And then of course they were really big on Pinterest and all the things, and all the stars aligned. And I got really lucky and I hit the Pinterest wave, and then like my stuff went viral, and then I started getting work, and then my art rep saw my stuff, and then my art rep and I started working together in like 2013, 14-ish. And that's when like hand lettering was like boom, like everybody wanted hand lettering. It got really popular. And so it was a lot of hard work, right place, right time, luck, and privilege for sure.
I think when you keep saying luck, though, I think people take it as like, oh, I'm not lucky. But at the same time, the main ingredient that you had was hard work. And for me, you created your own luck because you showed up, most likely when it wasn't convenient as well. Yes, you're privileged. I was privileged too. You're a cheerleader because you're like me. You probably had parents that were cheerleaders.
Right.
So, yeah, I would definitely say I was privileged as well. But there still was a lot of other odds fighting against me, like financial wise, or this or that, or student loan debt, or
oh my God.
yeah, depression, anxiety. I've dealt bullies, I've dealt with all kinds of outside external forces, dreaming big, but yet internal and external non-believers pulling it down. And I'm sure you've dealt with all that too. So at the same time, you definitely created your own luck, which I want people to think you can't just take a shortcut. Like we talked about in the intro.
Totally. And I think that creating your own luck, another like way to like say that is like just saying yes to opportunities that like happen to cross your path. Because a lot of people, when we first hop on here and we got into this conversation, a lot of people just don't want to do the work, or they're afraid of saying yes, or they're afraid of taking a chance because they might fail. Like, I think that a trait that I have is that I look at it a little bit more objectively, where I just get curious and I'm just like, where's this going to take me? Like, it could take me someplace bad, but it could take me someplace good. And then I say yes. And then that essentially has helped me create my own luck. So yeah, I guess it is a combination of like crafting it on your own, and then also like external circumstances.
Throwing yourself into the fire. My biggest growth has come when an opportunity came my way and it made me want to shit my pants. But really, like, you can flip it. Yeah, I'm nervous, or really, maybe I'm just really excited. And on the other side of that fear, that wall right there is the gold. Because our mind, I went to a conference recently, Summit of Greatness, and a guy named Kyle Cease was like, fear treats your mind to like hold you back because you know what you'll lose. You can't see what you gain. So like breaking through and doing something uncomfortable, that's where the gold's at. And I feel like that's like your trigger. If it's going to make you uncomfortable, yeah, what it could lead to, I could lose this or something bad could happen, but what's like the opportunity? And once you start like leaning into the opportunity, then the fear just normalizes itself. And now like what's the next a question I want to ask early? What's something that scares you right now that you want to try, that excites you, nervous, but you haven't done it yet? What's the next thing? Because I feel like you've done so many things people strive to do, but like, what's the thing that you're most scared of right now?
I think the thing that I am most scared of, and this might seem like a little bit like surprising to you or anyone else who follows me on the internet, because I'm like very open and public on the internet, like talking about mental health, just showing up my face. I potentially would just like to like grow my following and show up on camera more often, like my face, and like talk about things that are exciting to me, which I already kind of do, but I would like to do it more. And I would like to like just be a little bit more vulnerable in that space. And that is really scary, because as soon, like, I have this great little following on like my Instagram and like my social channels, that these are amazing people. I hardly ever get haters on there, anyone being like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Like who, or like even just saying stupid things like, oh, she's too short, or like, you know, people like trolls like to say that kind of stuff.
I've
And
gotten my fair share of that.
oh,
Yeah,
bless your heart. It's the worst, you
it
know?
sucks.
But as soon as you start opening yourself up to a broader spectrum of people, you're opening yourself up to that criticism. And it's just like really scary. So I'm scared of that. I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm really excited to see how I respond to it once I start growing my following more and getting. I'm just like kind of excited for those negative comments because I'm excited to see how I handle it. And I think the fact that I'm even excited about it says something, because it says, okay, it's scary, but I'm going to, you know, I'm still going to do it.
That's like your future self being like, your future self's trying to nudge you in that direction. Be like, hey, you got to go through the short-term pain to get to the long-term game. So what's that look like for you then? Is that like Instagram live videos off the cuff? Or what does that mean? What's that look like for you? What's the action step?
Right. So
not to put you in a corner or anything, but I think this is going to help other people, you know, craft a game plan.
Totally. I think all the things. So I really would like to get on Instagram Live more. I get really scared of that because I like to have control over my settings. And you kind of lose a little bit of that control because everything is just off the cuff. I would love to do just more on camera things in general. So like getting on my Instagram TV and my YouTube channel. And this, I always feel like this sounds, I hate even talking about it, but we should talk about this because you already mentioned it. I want to do more targeted ads, like targeted ad campaigns. And I get like really cringy every time I send it to like my Facebook marketing guy, because it's like, oh, he's watching me talk on camera and he probably thinks that I'm so stupid. I literally think that every time I send him a video. And but I do it anyway. And clearly it's getting across to people because I've had a lot of conversions from those ads, by the way. But like you're seeing it, people like you are seeing it. And so I need to just not care, like to just be like, okay, well, I don't give a fuck if someone thinks that I'm stupid or I don't know what I'm talking about or whatever. I just need to not care. Like you only live once, so you might as well just
YOLO.
try it. Yeah, YOLO. You might as well try it, and you can't control if someone thinks you're a lame person. Like you can't control that.
It's like there's I think it was Mel Robbins I heard. She's like, there's billions of people in the world, and the opinion that only matters is one person, and that's yourself. Really? And then like my life motto is you can't make everyone happy. You are not pizza. You're
not pizza.
You're not pizza. Like that's the motto, because I grew up people pleasing. And I mean, you seem to have it down. So like, I feel like you would crush a podcast, like something like you did a video format and then you just export the audio and put it live so you can hit two birds with one stone.
That's something that I want to do for sure. And I've like dabbled a little bit in trying things, and I'm kind of like slowly testing it out, and I haven't really talked about it on my social channels just because. So the reason I haven't is not because I don't feel like the quality is good, because I absolutely think that, you know, everything that I want to talk about on a potential podcast is good. It's more so I have a tendency to spread myself way too thin over things. And
yeah,
okay,
I get it.
nodding your head. So,
I get it.
Yeah,
Superman syndrome.
You have a kid, you're doing a podcast, you're coaching, you're doing your website, you're also doing freelance work. I feel like you and I are like kindred spirits. Like I totally understand where you're at right now. And also the fact that you have another job is like, good God, man, I don't know how you do this.
It's been a season of saying no and delegating things that don't align with the main vision. That's like the focus.
You're just like skipping a little bit. So anyways, so the reason that I haven't really talked about doing a podcast or like dive deeper into it is because I want to be able to make sure that I have consistency with it. And if I have a history of saying, oh, I'm going to do this, and then it turns out to be too lofty of a goal and I spread myself too thin. And so if I can find like a really easy setup to be like, oh, I can run this podcast, I can create quality content, even if it's really short, but I can do it every week, then I feel like I would be more apt to just push it. And it's the same with my YouTube. Like I don't talk about my YouTube channel a lot because it's not consistent, and people need that consistency to feel like it is really a part of your brand. And there are certain things in my brand that are very consistent. And so I really try to push those. And I think this has been a season of life of me paring down my brand, what it is that I'm doing, and just like my personal life, like cutting out things that I can't, put quality attention
80/20,
to.
your life as well as your business.
Yeah, like finding balance, and then cutting out all those things. I don't know.
So like
So
one of my questions to you then is, I think it's incredible how much you do handle. How do you manage to handle not only clients as well as the educational pillars of your platform while still being a wife, a mother, because you got a kid, right? One kid?
yep.
And then your husband has a business that you help out in too.
Yeah.
Like, how do you live off routine, or do you just show up and wing it?
So for the longest time, I've just showed up and wing it. I am like textbook ADHD fairy girl. And so I've always just like showed up in my office in my pajamas. And I'm just like, I want to do this. I want to do that. This sounds fun. Oh, I got to finish up this client thing, send it off to my client. And I always just feel like I live off of fairy dust. Sometimes I don't even know how I've achieved so much. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, because that sort of like bouncing all around has been like I've produced some really creative stuff, and but I've recently started to try to implement more of a routine into what I do, because now my days end at like 2:30 because I have to leave and pick up my child from school. So I just have to be so much more regimented of how I spend my time, and because I also want to be able to like exercise and do my meditations and like do all these other things. So I've been trying to be better about that. But to answer the original question, what keeps me going is 100% having integrity in what I do and being really passionate and like curious. And I think that any sort of like successful entrepreneur in general, like not even just someone who's like a creative like you or I, is like just being curious about the world and seeing what will happen, and then actually taking steps to make those things happen, and then being passionate about it, like wanting to do it, like not feeling like someone is pushing you to do it. There's like, I feel like in the world there are pushers and there's pullers, and the pullers are the people that like maybe you hire someone and you're always having to like be like, come on, clean the bathrooms, like clean the baseboards. Like I say that because that's like a thing at Terra Firma, which all of our Terra Firma staff are awesome. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of people don't want to clean the bathrooms, and it's the same in life. Like, are you the type of person who like you push everyone else and you get things done, and you're not the person that like you have to like reel in?
Yeah, it's like the same thing as, are you a consumer or are you a creator at the same time?
Totally. It's
Yeah.
totally like that.
Yeah, you're definitely a pusher, and I would categorize myself as a pusher, even though
Yeah.
when I was serving at a restaurant for 2 years out of college, because I couldn't get a design job for like 3 years, I was the guy who had to clean the bathroom. So I've been there. I've cleaned up other
I
people's
hope
shit.
you I hope you cleaned those bathrooms and were like,
I owned
I'm
it.
grateful for this
I,
job.
I set an example. I was
Oh
making
yeah.
hella good money to pay off private student loan debt, but man, it wasn't fulfilling like what creating was.
Right. I totally know what you mean, because when I first started out, when my husband and I were living in LA, I did like tons of odd jobs. So like I cleaned houses. And the reason that I always use that as like an example for like I think a lot of people who are just like entitled to success without having to do the hard work is because those are the types of people that like will say that thing is below me. And the type of person who I feel like is really successful cleans the bathrooms with a smile and says, I'm grateful for what I'm doing right now because it's an opportunity for me to have integrity and like put my full effort into whatever I'm doing.
That alone would make such a badass episode of Are You a Pusher or Are You a Puller? That alone,
Oh yeah.
I might have to give you some credit on that one for
All
sure.
right.
So you're talking about like what lights you up, and this show is all about fuel for your mind and creative grind. And one of these questions I just started asking, well, I will be asking now. Technically, you'll be the first, even though I asked Steve and Danielle Wolf yesterday, but their episode comes out next week. So technically, you're the first person.
Right.
And this conference I went to lately, it's really, really challenging me. Like, what fuels your drive? What's the reason you get out of bed each day? Why do you do what you do? And for me at the beginning, it was chasing the glory of likes and affirmations because I'm like, holy shit, for
Yeah.
once someone thinks my art's good, because I didn't share I was an artist till like 21 because I got bullied and
Mhm.
picked on so badly. I didn't want anybody to have more fuel to light me up with. But now it's like, what lights you up? Why do you do what you do? Why do you do freelance? Why do you do the educational side? What's your fuel?
Well, why do you do it now? Since if it's not the affirmations, like that
So
codependence of your following now, then what is it?
serving, I've always had that coaching mentality. I was always like the rah-rah guy growing up. I always had parents, lifting my spirits as well, telling me I could do whatever I wanted. And then I blew my back out playing college football twice.
Oh my
And so I
goodness.
started
That's
student
awful.
coaching. I was a student coach and, I hated it at the time, but looking back, connecting the dots, I'm like, damn, I wouldn't be doing what I do now had I not gone through that experience. And when I graduated school, I started high school coaching outside of doing like this, serving at a restaurant. Then I was in personal training. And then I'm like, how can I combine my worlds of art with this motivating side and
Mm-hmm.
not feel so cheesy? I thought it was a dichotomy of like, I could only do this or do this. There's no one doing this. So like, clearly it can't be done. And then it's kind of all just evolved from there, motivational drawings, because it's the stuff I needed for when I got picked on and bullied or felt lost. So I always created kind of the thing that my lost little soul, that little fourth grader who still lives with me, got beat up and bullied. Like I try to create something for that person. And then it turned into blogging and then speaking and then teaching workshops and then the podcast and now coaching. So it's always evolved. And it wasn't until my wife dropped on me that she's pregnant. Now it's not only is it serving, but it's like, how can I leave a legacy, leave something behind for my
Yeah,
son that he can be proud of, like if something happened to
totally.
me, I suck at video. I hate being on video. I'm extroverted and I hate being on camera.
Yeah.
But now it's like something happened to me. He could go check out his dad on YouTube or still connect with me through that. So it's like that. That's
That's
my
really
fuel right now.
special.
Yeah, it's pretty cool and like it makes doing the shit that's not convenient doable. It makes getting up at 4 a.m. a reason. Like I brought in money for this coaching program that I was able to pay off debt. To like give ourselves a raise and change our family tree one day. So like that's the shit that lights me up. It makes doing the hard shit
Mm-hmm.
okay. It's like cleaning up the shit with a smile because there's a purpose
Totally.
behind.
Totally. Yeah, there's a greater purpose.
But what about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, so, I think that all of those things that you just said, that definitely resonates with me a lot. But maybe like a more simplified version, I think that like what I'm really inspired by and like why I do what I do. Um, I think first and foremost, this might seem like a little bit selfish, I guess. But when you're creating, like you're literally like, what did Freud say? Like something about babies. Like artists are just like how babies like to play with their poop. They just never stop playing with their poop. And so, in a sense, creating art is a selfish thing that can have great positive
I would
impacts.
agree. It's
Yeah,
just
so
like you got to make yourself happy before you can make anyone else happy. You can't pour from an
totally.
empty cup.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I think the selfish part of it is that I just genuinely have a strong curiosity of like systems and ideas and like bringing ideas to life. So it's just like a curiosity in creation, seeing what will happen. If I try this, what's going to happen? And then in addition to that, I just get a sense of joy and happiness when I see the work that I do impact people in a positive way. And that could be like a variety of different ways, but just seeing a positive impact in other people's lives from the work that I create. Like that's like why I do it. Like,
I think that's good. Like I think I should rephrase it of like what's your internal fuel and then what's your external fuel. I
yeah,
think that's
you need
that's
both.
yeah, you definitely need both for sure. That's dope. I'm gonna rephrase that question from now on. So, what are some tips then, some practical tips that you can give someone listening on how to market and position themselves from a hobbyist to someone who gets taken more seriously? They're ready to start turning on that business switch.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I have so many opinions on
And I
it.
want to give a quick example real quick, especially from like a
Totally.
positioning statement or a marketing message. Right now,
Mm-hmm.
if you go to Molly's Instagram, within 5 seconds, you know exactly who she is, what she does, who it's for, and why you should care. And like the main little nugget just summed up so beautifully is helping creatives turn skills into profit. Like that is a positioning statement That's a very brief, within 5 seconds, you know if your work's for her. So like, what is some other tips that you could give people similar to this, or that helped you thrive, or that you see mistakes all the time, or things to do, or and definitely don't do?
Totally. So yeah, your Instagram bio, that's like awesome because then it shows people what you're doing. But I always feel like all of those little marketing hacks, so many people love to give you marketing hacks. Like you're all like, at least for me, because I did all this research on targeted ads before I started doing targeted ads. And so now I'm getting all of these targeted ads from these bros being like, 7 tips to create $1 million business. And it's like, oh my
The
gosh, these
shortcut
things.
stuff.
Yes, and I find it very annoying. But whatever, it works for some people. But reeling it back, getting rid of all of the marketing hacks, I think the number one tip that is going to help artists or creatives or just like a brand in general position themselves as someone to be listened to, or as a professional, whatever, is being, first of all, being really, really good at whatever it is that you're selling. And then secondly, being able to visually represent your overarching vision for whatever it is you are trying to do with your business, being able to visually represent that in everything that you do. So whether it's like just your Instagram feed or like videos that you put out or like being on Facebook or mingling with clients or whatever, you are always doing something that is trying to work towards that greater vision. And so then your aesthetics and your voice, the way you speak to people and the types of clients that you get are all in line with that. And that just takes time, and it takes slowing down, and it takes the bravery of not just straight up copying people, which it can be really scary because it's easy to just copy people, and it's hard to say, oh, I'm going to build this brand that is truly me. I'm going to let myself be seen, right? Like it's scary to let yourself be seen because of bullying, because of whatever. People are going to, I don't know, people just like to make fun of people, and there are lots of other things on that. But I think a good example of this, so like you and I, we both love hand lettering, right? We both love illustration. We both love design. We both love our creative communities. And we both kind of have similar offerings, right? Like we totally similar. So like we're both these cheerleaders for the community, and we do a lot of free stuff. And then we'll do potentially, I don't do one-on-one coaching, but like in a sense, like I do online education. And so it's a similar thing that we are selling. But this is like where this idea of personal voice is so important. You and I are totally different people with totally different brands, and the people that we are attracting to our brand are going to be in line with what it is that we're selling. So like we're not in competition. We really
No,
aren't.
not at all. If
And
anything, I want to help promote what you do because I think my
vice versa.
audience can leverage it.
Right. But if you and I were just copying each other, like there would probably be a problem. Like
We'd
not even
squabble.
necessarily like, yeah, not even necessarily like drama, like, ooh, this person's copying that
You got
person.
beef, Molly?
Yeah, like not even necessarily that, but there would be a problem. Like both of us might not be like building the type of following that we want. So
The
it's so
authenticity is
important to
missing.
focus
Your
on that.
own unique message is missing. Yeah.
Right. Like your own voice and letting yourself shine and just being true to yourself. I think that's the best business advice other than all of the marketing hacks, because once you start falling into that and like fearlessly like promoting who you are, people like gravitate towards that. They love it way more
Fearlessly
than just like,
promoting you. That's dope.
yeah.
That could make a good lettering piece. I'm just saying, in
All
your
right.
style.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think that's a huge tip because a lot of people are afraid to show up and be seen as themselves because
Yeah.
of the internal or external critics, for sure.
Right.
Any other tips that you have for someone that, or what do you see that people are doing that you immediately are like, dude, you got to stop doing that?
Oh man. I am not quick to say like, oh, you need to stop doing that, because there are so many different ways to doing things, and sometimes the things that you think are really bad could actually be creative and turn into a really cool way of doing things. But
I guess for an example, if someone like DMs me out of nowhere asking me for me to like feature them, or something like that. Just like a cold
Oh
call. Hey,
yeah, yeah, that's
will you
annoying.
feature my account? Like just things like that. Like that's not a good. It's
Oh,
outreach is
okay,
good, but how can you
totally.
give value to someone? A tremendous amount of value, especially if like you have a smaller following, they have a bigger following. Like how can you bring value to people? Like that's something. Don't go and asking. Don't be a taker.
Totally. I mean, you just said it. Pretty much like what we were talking about earlier. Like, don't be entitled. Like, don't
Mm,
just be like an entitled little brat. Like, be nice to people, create meaningful friendships that are not just about work and not just about putting yourself forward. And don't just demand things of people. Like, I can't even tell you how many people have never even like I've never even like talked with them in the DMs, and they'll on my Instagram, and they'll message me and just be like, "Where did you buy that thing?" And like nothing else. And it's like, okay, well, that's I'll probably tell you just because I'm a nice person, but also like I'm a human. Like when you're nice to people and create friendships, your pool of inspiration just grows exponentially. Like so your pool of inspiration, like that should be kind of the goal, is to be like, I'm connecting with all these different people and we're all providing value to each other, like emotionally and spiritually and creatively. Not like, oh, I want to be friends with that person because they're famous or they're going to
mm.
get me somewhere. Like, yeah, that's just annoying. That's just like an
Big.
asshole thing.
That's where like people are like, I want to network, and I'm like,
Ugh.
no, I'd rather build relationships.
Yeah, yeah. And then when you do that, when you build the relationships, it just happens naturally and you create that better relationship with people that's on a real foundation.
Relationships are everything. They really
Oh,
are.
totally. Oh, totally.
I have a quick listener question too. This one is from Miling Lu. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. I tried very hard. You said you kind of go with the flow a lot of things, but she asked, what are some ways to manage productive workflow?
Ooh, yeah. So I actually talk about this on like my YouTube and social channels. I talk a lot about how I have ADHD and it really affects my productivity and my workflow, my mental health, all aspects of my business. And so I've had to find ways of coping with my ADHD symptoms when they flare up. Sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's better. A lot of it is interconnected with like just my mental health and physical health in general. But something that I found is like blocking out time has been really helpful, and saying, okay, I'm going to have a general routine that's not based on specific times. It's just based on like in the morning, I take, a block and just focus on writing emails, and that's it. And just answering emails, which I haven't done in the past. And
Almost
I've been
like
trying,
batching your work in a sense within a carved out period of time. This is all
right.
you're going to be focusing on during this. Okay.
And then if it takes a little longer, that's fine. And if it takes less time, that's fine. But that has been really helpful for me with productivity. And then I also, because I work from home and I work for myself, I give myself a little bit of creative freedom. So if I do feel that spark of intuition, like I love following my intuition, it's the curiosity thing. So if I have a spark of intuition, I try to assess it. So I'll write a sticky note of the idea or thought or thing that I want to, like, whatever white rabbit I want to chase. I'll like stick it on my desk or on the wall or whatever, and I'll say, okay, is this worth me like going away from my emails right now? And how like how important it is for me to answer how important is it for me to answer this email? And then I try to gauge my impulse control, which is a huge thing for anyone who has ADD, is impulse control. And I try to gauge it. And so if it's something that's like, this is brilliant, I need to just explore it, then I'll give myself a little bit of freedom to do that. But if I have a deadline and I need to finish something, then I'll say, okay, I'm putting a sticky note. I'm going to remember it. It's on my wall and I can go back to it.
It's like you build margin for potential playtime.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
dope.
Yeah. Which
I
I have the
I
luxury of doing because
I
I work from home.
don't. I can't tell. I have not had a chance to like play in a minute. It's been a
Oh,
while. Yeah.
oh, yeah.
So it's
So
hard, but I think if you're in that position, especially early in the beginning, and you don't have all these other things going on, like giving yourself permission and freedom to do that, that's awesome.
and you got to work with what you have. So like you
Hmm.
are like really strict, it sounds like, on your
It's just a
schedule.
different season right now. You know, I've had
It's a
seasons
different
plenty of play.
season.
It's just a season. I'm not pigeonholed into
Right.
this lifestyle I've put on my plate right now. So it's just a season.
It totally is. That's a great way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Wait,
Um,
I'm curious.
Yeah.
How old are you? Are you same? I'm curious if you're the same age as me.
All right, you asked me first, so I just turned 31.
Okay, I'm gonna be turning 32. And so when you said like, oh, it's a season, it just like reminded me of like the period I am at in life. Like I've been saying that to myself a lot, like when I had my kid, and I'm like, this is a season of life. And for some reason, I feel like when you hit 30, life kind of feels like that. You're like, this isn't going to be forever. And like, I'm going to take this season and I'm going to see what I can learn from it. And then realize that things are probably going to shift and change in the future.
And it's when you give yourself permission, like you don't have to do it all. This year has been that
Yeah.
year of like, oh my gosh, stop trying to I can't do a website, build content, prep for a live podcast, do a live mural session, and, write all these email sequences for this coaching program.
Yeah.
Like I can't do it all. What can I do during this little season of 3 to 4 months at a stretch, or even a season of 1 month, kind of make things work with what you need to get done during this season that aligns with every vision or goal you have.
Yeah, that's very strategic of you.
When I work for myself full time, I'll have to hit you up to get some pointers, because then I'll have 40 hours extra in my life. I'm like, oh my God, what do I do?
Well, you can just expand
rabbits.
it. The same thing, except expand it. And I mean, everyone works differently, so you might just work differently than me.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm a structured guy because of sports. Like it's drilled into me. That's how I thrive. But I want to allow more margin to play if it comes up. Like that's what I would really, really want. Before we go into rapid fire questions, what's one piece of advice you give yourself when you were just starting off?
Oh man. To really focus in and learn more about the business side of what I do, like how to like organize clients, how to get paid, how to do my taxes, how to like itemize expenses, how to market my work, how to engage in proper client communication, boundaries with clients. I'm just like naming all the things. I wish I would have focused more on that, especially like at my senior end of school, like when I went to CCS. I wish that I would have learned more about that and realized the importance of it. And also it's like, it's a very overwhelming thing when you are in art school, or if you're just starting out, because you're focusing so much on building your portfolio and getting good at your craft. Like that takes so much effort and work and like conceptual thought. So the idea of even thinking about all the business things, it's like using a different part of your brain. It's like super overwhelming, but I wish that I would have focused more on it. So there's that. And I'm teaching an online class.
I was just going to say,
101.
I was going to say, let me do a quick little marketing plug for those who struggle with this. Cause I get asked this all the time, but like, that's not my focus. My focus is helping you build something, getting started, getting traction, stop spinning your wheels, put your creativity to use and find work that lights you up. And the next step, I'll be able to teach that eventually. But from now, I can pivot people over to you. So like, this is exactly what you teach, which will be in the show notes as well. So if like people struggle with this right now and they really want to start putting on the business hat and start taking themselves more seriously and, bypass some of these hurdles of taking a shitty client or waiting for people to pay you or not getting a deposit, not having an agreement, not knowing usage or licensing, where can people get all this good information?
All those things. Yeah. So I teach that in my new online class, Freelance 101. Right now, enrollment is closed on it, but it's going to open back up on September 30th for like a short period of time for anyone who is interested in opting in.
We're in the future. So this is like October 30th.
September 30th. Wait,
but
is that
this
September,
episode
right?
comes October.
Oh no. Okay. So
yeah.
if anyone is interested in joining the class, they can join the wait list on my landing page, because the new semester is going to be opening up in winter of 2021. Oh my goodness.
Oh shit, that's a
Is it going to be
distance
2021?
away.
Wait, it's 2020.
2020 is next year. Please don't skip ahead.
It's
okay.
2020. I'm like, what year?
I'm like, I'm not ready for my son to be that old yet. Please don't do that to me.
It's going to open up winter of 2020, and so you can join the waiting list, and then you'll get a notification. The whole newsletter thing. But right now it's closed.
Perfect. Okay, so join on that waiting list for right now. But in the meantime, you have a ton of courses and stuff that people can help you out with. Like what are some of the courses that you're offering at the moment that I'll also link up in the show notes?
Yeah, so I teach an online class called Happy Money. That's like my other big hitting class. And it's all about, Yes, it's all about creating passive income through digital products. So it's like very specific. It's geared towards creatives in general. So like bloggers, writers, photographers, hand letterers,
Me.
illustrators. You, yeah. I should get you in on the class if you're not already. And it's really, really good. It's a great class. Yeah, and then so those are the main classes that are on my scope right now: the freelance and my happy money. And then I also teach a couple other small classes on my website that are more like very specific. Like I teach a hand lettering class and a calligraphy class, and what else?
It was like an in-depth, yeah, I was gonna say the in-depth animated GIF stuff, like that's been popping.
Yeah, super easy, and less expensive classes that are still really fun. And then I also have a YouTube where I have content on there, tutorials, little like inspirational things, just vlogging, talking about all that stuff. And then I have my Instagram. So,
Right,
and on my newsletter, I also offer a lot of different like fun, helpful, like educational things if you're on my newsletter.
Okay. I'm going to have you sign off by telling people exactly what those handles are real quick too. So we'll get to that here in a second. Rapid fire. If you were on death row, I told you to be prepared for this one.
Oh my gosh, I wasn't prepared.
If you're on death row,
Uh-huh.
what would your last slice of pizza be?
Oh my goodness. Definitely a margarita pizza with pepperoni.
Oh, the switch up. Okay. Anywhere specific?
More specific on my pizza?
Anywhere specific where you would get it?
Oh, yeah.
You make
I would
it yourself?
definitely get it at I'm trying to think if they switched their name. Martha's Vineyard here in Grand Rapids. I think it might be Nantucket Bakery. I don't know if it's Martha's Vineyard or not Nantucket. It's like the same thing. I would get it from there.
Okay. If you could have lunch with one person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh my goodness. I gotta answer this really quickly, don't I?
It's all right. You got time.
I think that it would be cool. There's so many people I would like to.
Like for mine, it would be like Bob Ross and Stephen King. Dude painted with a squirrel in his pocket. That shit's so dope.
Man, Edward Gorey would be pretty cool.
You can list a few.
Yeah, Edward Gorey would be pretty cool, but I don't. Oh, I'm really bad at answering. My husband and I were laughing about this the other day because we're like, if anyone asked us rapid fire questions, it would be hilarious because we're Enneagram 4s, and so we always think that our answer like is a symbol for who we are. So, Jim Henson, definitely Jim Henson.
All right.
Yeah.
You crushed it. Way to answer that rapidly. Okay, if you were a typeface, would you be a serif, sans serif, or script?
Oh, probably a script. Yeah.
All right. What would your font or typeface be called then?
Oh man. Maybe fairy dust.
Fairy dust. Curiosity.
Yeah.
Cool. Where can people go then to follow you online and support you? Everything you had mentioned earlier, but let's just drop these handles real quick.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and YouTube, all at Molly Jacques, MollyJacques.
I always thought it was Jacques for the longest time, and I had to like watch you on video to hear you say it.
I feel that way about so many people that I wish they would just tell me how to pronounce their last name. But yes, it's Jacques. It should be Jacques, but
Jacques.
For some reason it changed, like with our certain lineage.
You put it in your about page. Sorry, I'm a creeper. I do my homework on people, but he says Molly Jacques, like Jakes. So you tell people. Molly, thank you so much for joining us today, making time out of your busy schedule. I know you still got a lot of stuff going on, even if you work from home full time. You melted faces with value, and it's just been nice to finally get to connect with you face to face over the internet.
I know, Scotty, it was such a pleasure. Like, I feel so honored to be on here and to be able to talk about what I do. I love it. And I definitely feel like I'm in a place of privilege to be able to like share it with the world.
Next time it would be dope to have you back on a round 2 and let's like go deeper in some of the more tactical things.
I would love that.
Okay, cool. Well, let's stay in touch, and thanks again. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Scotty.
All right, bye.
Thanks again for listening. It'd be awesome if you took the time to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let the comment below so we can connect. Again, if you want to catch a shout out as a future listener of the week, make sure you subscribe to the show on iTunes and give it a rating and review.